So you're all very welcome to this side event at the FAO Global Conference on Sustainable Livestock Transformation. This side event is called Today's Leaders, Tomorrow's Success, Youth Leadership in Sustainable Livestock. And if you're expecting to be at a different side event, you're in the wrong room and you're free to leave now. But after that, we would like if you would stay then for the remainder of it and not, I suppose, get up and interrupt the proceedings. So my name is Frank O'Mara. I have two hats. I am the Director of Teagasc in Ireland. That's the Agricultural Research, Advisory and Education body. And for the purpose of today, I am the President of the Animal Task Force. And it's really useful to have two hats, because when you speak to somebody, or when someone says, I didn't like what you said there, well, you can say, well, I was speaking on behalf of the Animal Task Force. So anyway, today I'm wearing my Animal Task Force hat. And for those of you that don't know the Animal Task Force, it's a European organisation comprised of public research organisations from about 23 European countries and also some private sector organisations. And it's dedicated to advancing a vision of responsible livestock within a circular agriculture, and to highlighting the vital role that research and innovation can play. And we produce publications and we organise events, and you will see on the table outside we have a number of our publications like that. That's a policy brief we produced, and there are vision papers and strategic research and innovation agendas and so on. So we are co-organising this event with two other organisations, the Canadian Cattle Association, which is the national voice of Canada's 60,000 beef farmers and feedlots, and it was founded by producers, and it's led by a producer-elected board of directors, and it works to address issues that concern Canada's beef producers. And the third organisation in our team is the World Farmers Organization, which is an international organisation of national farmer organisations and agricultural co-ops from across the all the continents, and they represent and give voice to the diverse community of farmers worldwide in international policy discussions or multilateral fora like today. So, coming back to my own organisation, the Animal Task Force, we're European focused, but we do work closely with the Global Alliance for Sustainable Livestock. And in relation to the topic of this side event, the Global Alliance for Sustainable Livestock actually has a youth advisory group, and they would be very interested in our discussions here today, I think. And as it happens, there's a Canadian, Evan Schaff, who's co-chair of that group. So with our side event today, which as I said is titled Today's Leaders, Tomorrow's Success, Youth Leadership in Sustainable Livestock. The purpose of the event, or what we're trying to achieve by having this event here today, is to reframe youth not just as lovely people that we know someday will run the world and own the world, but as people that have a really important role to play today in defining what our sustainable livestock sector is, and in bringing it on that sustainable transformation journey that this FAO conference seeks to advance. So we in the Animal Task Force, we see a huge role for research and innovation in delivering responsible livestock systems. And young farmers today in the livestock sector are leading, they are innovating, they are modernising practices, and they're revitalising rural areas through their activities in the livestock sector. So it's not about what they'll do tomorrow, it's what they are doing today, and how can we make that a bigger contribution from that. And in my mind, the two questions that we want to discuss here today is number one, how can youth contribute more strongly to improving our livestock systems? And how can we retain and grow a strong next generation in the livestock sector? So to do that, we're going to kick off the session with two youth-led innovation and leadership case studies. One, an eco-friendly poultry initiative from Zimbabwe that dramatically reduced chick mortality, and the second from Canada, looking at the National Beef Sustainability Assessment. So our first speaker is actually going to be our Canadian colleague, that's Jenna Sarich from the Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Beef, and she's going to talk about sustainability in Canadian beef. So we look forward to your presentation, Jenna.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for the introduction, Frank. So as mentioned, my name is Jenna Sarich. I'm from Canada. I am the technical consultant and analyst for the Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. I'm also a 2025 Canadian Nuffield Scholar, and I'm excited today because I get to talk about both of those things and how they come together. So I wanted to give a brief overview of what beef production looks like in Canada. So it's important to note that 98% of our beef farms in Canada are family owned, and they have been for multiple generations. And in total, we have about 10 million beef cattle across Canada, and that's as of July 1st, 2025. And if you look in the southern strip of Canada here, most of our beef cattle and most of our agriculture resides in the southern strip. As you know, Canada is quite cold, so this is the area that's the most productive land. And we have about 60,000 beef farms across Canada. You can see that we have a large cluster here in Alberta and Saskatchewan and into Manitoba. And I think what's really important to note is that this is where a lot of our grasslands in Canada are. So we have native and we have tame grasslands that are extremely important for our beef industry and for ecosystem services in Canada. So a brief overview of what our system looks like. We have a lot of grazing, and then we also have a feedlot system. So most of our cattle, about 95%, will go into both systems. So they'll start on our grass for about 80% of their lives, and then they end in a feedlot. And it's really the combination and the integration of the two systems that gives us a lot of sustainability benefits in Canada. So Frank asked me to talk a little bit about the challenges and the things that we're working on in the beef industry. So back in 2020, the national associations in Canada came together and they released a suite of 2030 goals. So these are the goals that we've been working on. And the ones that I want to note today are maintaining our 35 million acres of native grassland. We also have a goal to reduce greenhouse gas emission intensity by 33% by 2030. We also have other goals in animal welfare, in reducing food loss and food waste, our wetlands. We also are looking to maintain and enhance the wildlife habitat capacity that are on the land that we use for beef production in Canada. So diving a little bit further into Canada's top priorities, as you'll hear me mention many times, are grasslands, which contribute vast amounts of carbon and vast amounts of wildlife. So largely, the majority of our grasslands in Canada are managed by beef producers. And these lands are essential for our Canadian wildlife and for protecting the carbon that's in the soil. So maintaining those strong, healthy grasslands depend on a strong cattle industry in Canada. Another one of our priorities is looking at greenhouse gas emissions. So we've been quite successful in producing an efficient product, but we're continuing to invest and we're continuing to try to make progress and get our emission intensity number down to the goal that I mentioned above. We also have a focus on generation renewal and youth leadership. And the two programs that I really want to note is our Canadian Cattle Young Leaders and our Canadian Cattle Youth Council. And really for a lot of these indicators, measurement is key. If you're not measuring something, then you don't know if you're maintaining it, you don't know if you're enhancing it, you don't know if you're making progress. So in the note of measurement, I want to talk briefly about our Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. So we are a regional roundtable of the global roundtable for sustainable beef. Our mission is to advance, measure, and communicate continuous improvement in sustainability of the Canadian beef value chain. So that's largely where this National Beef Sustainability Assessment comes in. So it's a large pillar of the work that CRSB does. And what it is a national assessment that's representative of the beef farms all across Canada in the map that I showed before. It's farm to fork, so we're looking all the way from resource extraction to the beef sitting on your plate and even what goes into the landfill. And it is our second one, so we released one back in 2016 based on 2014 data. This one that we released in 2024 is based on 2021 data. And what's really important is that it's science-based, it's peer-reviewed, and it's informed a lot of our communications, our marketing, our policy, and our research. And the assessment that was released back in 2016 is what helped inform those 2030 goals that I showed earlier. So it provides us metrics on carbon footprint, on water use, on grassland and pasture land indicators, and on excellence in animal care as well. So just to talk a little bit about some of the results that we found in this 2024 iteration, When we're looking on farm specifically, so looking at the farm gate, we saw that from 2014 to 2021, we saw a reduction in our carbon footprint, our water use, fossil fuels, and also in freshwater eutrophication and photochemical oxidant formation. And a main driver of why we saw this increase or decrease in a lot of these indicators is because we've seen increased efficiency. So our animals have shortened their production periods, so we have less days on feed, producing less manure in the process. So diving a little bit deeper into that greenhouse gas emissions, we saw that from 2014 to 2021, 1 kilogram of beef at the very end of the supply chain generated 15% less greenhouse gases. And if you look at the indicator in the infographic on the right, with that 2030 goal of a 33% reduction, Canada's on its way to meet that goal. So with the 2021 data year, we're looking like we're in good shape. And when we're looking at Canada more on a global scale, if we utilize the GLEAM model by FAO, we see that Canada generates 52% less emissions than the global average. And of course, when we're talking about environment, we don't only want to talk about greenhouse gases. We really want to look at the entire picture. We want to look at the whole system. So that's why we have a land use assessment as well. And when we're looking at the land that cattle are using in Canada, we utilize 40% of Canada's ag land. And of that 40%, 84% is pasture. So you can see in that pie chart, the majority is pasture. We use 8% for hay, 7% for barley, which is our most common feed ingredient, and then 1% for some other feed crops like wheat or oats. So when we're looking at that entire pie chart, we see that we are holding 1.9 billion tons of carbon. And to try to put that into some type of perspective, according to the National Resource Council in Canada, that would be equivalent to taking 2 billion vehicles off the road for an entire year. So it's a lot of carbon that's being stored in those lands. And when we're looking at where it's being stored, we see that the native grasslands are extremely important at 67%, 24% is tame grasslands, and then 9% is cropland, which would be used for cattle feed. So when we're looking at all of Canada's carbon, we see that beef cattle production is holding 40% of it. And when we're looking at cropland that's being used for cattle feed, we see that only 9% of our cropland across the entire country is being used to produce feed for cattle. And of course, beyond carbon, there's also extremely important contributions to wildlife habitat. So when we're looking at wildlife habitat, the yellow on the map there indicates what is crop and pasture land in Canada. So this is most of our agricultural land. And when we're looking just at that yellow piece, we see that land that's used for beef production contributes 74% of the wildlife habitat that wildlife are using for reproductive purposes. So we know that if this land weren't in beef production, wasn't used for grazing, wildlife would have a very difficult time finding anywhere for nesting and raising their young. And when we're looking at wildlife habitat as a whole, we've saw wildlife habitat decrease across Canada since 2016, but we saw what is on beef land increase. So if wildlife habitat capacity were a pie, the pie got smaller, beef's piece of the pie has gotten larger. And that's largely due to conversion to crop or to urbanization. So now, how do we put this back to the youth? So one thing that I've done over the last 2 years, I've been talking about some of these results of the assessment, and we've really leaned on those youth leaders. We have that Canadian Cattle Young Leader Program. We also have our Canadian Cattle Youth Council. We have some great universities as well. I've done some guest lectures in our animal science programs, and really empowering them to utilize these metrics for their own advocacy and for peer-to-peer learning, and normalizing sustainability as part of that leadership skill building. So if sustainability is one of their core, that core base now, when those young leaders are making the strategic decisions on farm, that sustainability pillar is always going to be there. And it really ensures that the NBSA results aren't just something I'm presenting today or something that is sitting on a shelf, but they can actually be used actively within the sector and beyond. So this is where I'm going to bring in my Nuffield a little bit with it. So I've been talking about these metrics for about 2 years now, and it's really excited me, and it's I really wanted to dig a little bit deeper into this. I know what Canada's doing, I know the metrics we have in Canada, and I want to look at it from a global approach. So I want to look at the entire system. So when I'm looking at environment, looking at things like greenhouse gases, but of course also land use, grassland conservation, which is extremely important for us, biodiversity, water, soil, and then also looking at it from that economic perspective. So making sure that producers are profitable and that they're getting paid for those ecosystem services that I just presented. Also from a society perspective, public trust is extremely important. Also labor availability and the contribution of the food that beef is really contributing to society. Also looking at animal welfare and health, governance and policy, innovation and knowledge transfer. So it's really looking at all these things in a system. And the concept of the Nutfield is really doing that global travel, going to other countries, seeing what they're doing really well, coming back, writing a report. Haven't got to that point yet, so I'm still in the fun part of traveling. And then you come back to Canada and you really disseminate your findings, and you have to really implement them and make change in the industry. So similar to the NBSA, not sitting on a shelf. You don't want your report to sit on a shelf. So finding ways that producers and industry can really latch on to the findings and implement them into our system. So that's all I have. Thank you so much. I look forward to the panel.
Thank you very much for that, Jenna. That was a lot that you have, not just all you have. So we really appreciate that. So there are plenty of seats down here near the front if the people standing at the back would like to come down and take a seat. I forgot to welcome people that are listening online to this, so you're all very welcome, and hopefully you can participate in the discussion afterwards. There will, by the way, be a discussion. We have 2 speakers, I should have said. We also have 3 other panellists, 2 here beside me and 1 online, who I will introduce when we come to the panel discussion. But for now, we're going to go to the second of our opening presentations, which is by Evangelista Chakira. And Evangelista is from the World Farmers Organization, and she's going to talk about innovative solutions for small-scale poultry producers. So over to you, Evangelista.
Thank you very much, Frank. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Evangelista Chakira, and I was part of the World Farmer Organization 3rd edition of the Gymnasium program, which is a leadership program for young farmers around the globe. So I come from a country called Zimbabwe, which is a landlocked country in Southern Africa. Our population is approximately 16 million people. And according to the Zimbabwe Poultry Association, every month, 11 million day-old chicks are sold. And it's amazing that 70% of the chicken we consume in Zimbabwe is produced by small-scale poultry producers. However, their major challenge is that they experience high chick mortality rate due to lack of proper brooding equipment as well as technical advisory services. This is a challenge that I actually faced when I was growing up, as I was involved in the family poultry business. And just like most African farmers, we couldn't afford labor. So if you're part of the family, you're also part of the labor. So one of my responsibilities was to make sure that we had to reduce our chick mortality rate by making sure that our chicks were warm. And because we did not have proper equipment, we used cardboard boxes. Each morning, we'll take the chicks out of the box and put them into the foal run. And then every evening, we'll put the chicks in the box so that they're kept warm. This was exhausting and tiresome. Imagine, I was only 10 when I started doing this. And I really missed a lot of childhood time, especially watching cartoons as well as playing with other children of my age. One day, I decided to be naughty, and I didn't put the chicks in the box during the evening. And guess what happened the following morning? We lost 35% of our chicks. And this really touched me because poultry keeping was not only a source of food, but a source of income for my family. I remember it was at that point that I said to myself, one day when I grow up, I would like to buy equipment to help my family so that they do not have to go through this trouble. And then fast forward, I grew up, I finished my education. I realized that I really wanted to go back into farming. And the only thing that I knew was broiler keeping. But I didn't want to do it the way we used to do it. So I actually took it upon myself to do a bit of research to see what other people in other countries were doing. So I visited neighboring countries and also utilized the internet so that I could understand how other farmers in other countries are reducing their chick mortality rates. And I managed to find out a lot of equipment. But the funny thing was that nothing was being made specifically for small-scale poultry producers, for farmers in my country. So I decided to come back home, sit on the table, and try to figure out what I can produce using locally available material. And it was in that process I came up with an innovation called the chick brooding device that mimics the mother hen. It actually reduces chick mortality rate by 95%. It's made up of 3 components. There's the brooder ring that confines the chicks in a specific area so that they do not run away from the heat source. In the middle, we place the heater, which is powered by the biomass briquette, which is a green alternative to charcoal, made from agricultural waste, for example, maize cobs as well as groundnut shells. And then on top, there's the heat reflector that regulates heat right around the brooding area. So when I started using this, it's amazing that my chick mortality rate actually was reduced by 95%. And then as a person who lives in a community with other farmers, I showed them what this innovation was doing to my birds, and they were really happy about it. And they asked me if I could also manufacture these devices for them. I remember it was at that point that I actually discovered that this can actually be a business. And I started a company called Passion Poultry, where we design, manufacture, and distribute innovative poultry equipment for small-scale poultry producers. So being young, being enthusiastic, I did not stop there. I went on further to register for intellectual property rights, and in 2019, I was granted a patent by a RIPO in the form of a utility model. Trust you me, this was not an easy journey. And I believe that through the gymnasium program, I was actually assisted because I gained peer-to-peer learning opportunities, which actually helped me to strengthen my networking skills, my confidence, and the skills in negotiation. So from my story, you can tell that this is not just a story. It's a leadership journey that signifies how young people are making a significant difference within the food industry. This means that young people are not only leaders for tomorrow, but are actually leaders for today and the future. If we invest in youth-led innovations, we can create the right environment where farmers can turn challenges into opportunity, and together we can make livestock farming a sustainable sector. If we do this, we'll see that young people will see livestock farming as an opportunity and not as an obstacle. Thank you.
Thank you, Evangelista. That was very, very interesting. We've had 2 really interesting and inspiring speakers, and thank you very much for that. So now we're going to move to the panel discussion. So I'll introduce my panel one by one and ask them maybe to tell us a little bit about what they do and what they're going to talk about today. So firstly, I'm going to come to Anne-Charlotte Duquette. who works in Institut de l'Élevage in France. So, Charlotte, would you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Well, yes, I work in IDEL, the French Livestock Institute, and it is an applied research institute led by livestock farmers and farming organizations. And in IDEL, I lead a department about social approaches, systemic approaches of farms, and also transfer and communication. And we recently developed specific research activities about public expectations, farm attractiveness, and also workforce renewal. And that's what I'm going to speak about later.
So I know you gave a very interesting presentation at the European Association of Animal Production Conference 2 years ago on this topic. So tell us a little bit about your research, like what's the current situation worldwide with regard to generation and renewal, and what factors affect the attractiveness of livestock farming?
In fact, as you know, as all of you know, agriculture and specifically livestock farming face the challenge of workshop renewal. At global level, the median age of farmers is about 60 years old. And even if there are about 860 million farmers, which is 27% of the global workforce, they are mostly at family and small-scale farmers, and the fact that they are aging is very, very demanding for all the world. And even if there is a large diversity among countries, for instance, in the number of farmers, which is from 60% in some countries to 2% in some other countries, the attractiveness of farming activity should be ensured, particularly to young people and specifically to young women, about which I will speak a bit later. But what is farm attractiveness and how to improve it? In fact, we suggest 3 axes for definition of farm attractiveness. The first one is about the image of livestock farming activity, the image among the farmers, of course, but also in the general public, the two being strongly linked. The second aspect is the access to the job, that is access to land, access to animals, access to education and training, and access to input, of course, and fundings. And the third aspect is about working and income condition to offer decent job in livestock farmings. And the 2 examples that were presented before give illustration of what could be good solution to improve attractiveness of a farmer. If I focus firstly on the image of livestock farming activity, it benefits in the general public of real assets, such as being an essential activity with a clear meaning, which produces quality food and offers a wide diversity of environmental and social services, as Jenna showed us, for instance, in the Canadian beef example. And it also offers the opportunity to be one's own boss, to be an entrepreneur at different scales, which is very important in the rural areas. But on the other hand, working on a farm has the reputation to be often difficult, to provide hard working conditions and insufficient incomes, and sometimes to be better adapted to men than to women. Moreover, as we saw during these 2 days, livestock farming faces ethical, environmental, and climate change, such as animal welfare, protection of environment, facing the global warming, etc. So to progress, we need to provide true and fair information of what is being a livestock farmer, to prove that the jobs are open to young people, are open to women, are also open to people not coming from an agricultural background, and show how the farmer do effectively tackle ethical and environmental issues. Second aspect, the access conditions. Becoming a farmer is often difficult. You have to overcome different barriers. You need to access to land, you need to access to animals, to knowledge, to funding. And it is specifically difficult for young people who don't have an economic background and for young women who often have less than the men. Consequently, there was, and there still is, a real exodus from the rural areas and from farming activities. If I make a short focus on the French example, about 50 years ago, about 1/3 of farmers' sons and 1/3 of farmers' daughters became farmers. Nowadays, about 1/4 of farmers' sons still become farmer, but only 6% of the farmers' daughter choose this activity. In fact, their conditions were particularly hard. They had few responsibilities, few autonomy in their decisions, and when they got educated, they chose to leave the farming activity and to make other jobs, either in the rural or in the urban areas. Yes. Okay, and so the third challenge is the working and income condition. The farmers, and particularly the young farmers, appreciate the diversity of their activities, the fact to work with animals, to work with the nature, to work to make their own decision. But they often suffer of the public image of their activity, of the controversy about livestock farming, of the insufficient incomes, and so progressing would imply to offer them decent prices, fair prices, decent jobs, to enhance also the attractiveness of rural area, not only of farm jobs, to support also practices to change. And the example of the Zimbabwean situation is an illustration of youth empowerment through peer-to-peer learning and to support to equipment and to facilitate the access to farms and to livestock farms. So in a nutshell, the idea would be to build together with farmers and other citizens tomorrow's farming livestock system, profitable, livable, open to diversity, and acceptable by citizens and also by consumers. Okay.
Thank you very much, Anne-Charlotte, and I've no doubt we'll come back to that, but giving people knowledge or information, access and good working conditions and income are really what's important. So next I want to bring in Tahira Mohammed. So Tahira is not in the room with us, but she is online there. We can see you. Tahira, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. So Tahira works for the International Livestock Research Organization in Kenya. So Tahira, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yes, thank you very much. And hi, everyone. My name is Tahira Mohammed. I am based at the International Livestock Research Institute in Nairobi. And currently, I am the Regional Partnership and Engagement Lead for a center called Jamil Observatory that leads research on early warning, early action, and food security. And today I am here to present to you some work we did for the International Year of Camel Lead regarding the role of camel in enhancing prosperity of pastoralists, especially young men and women. And this is through a photo voice research whereby I come from northern Kenya, and it is largely pastoralist area, those people who keep livestock in a free range rangeland. So what we did is we took group of young men and women from 5 counties within 5 wards within the northern part of Kenya, and we trained them on how to document their daily lives. So this was about what does camel production mean for you? How does it contribute to your livelihood? How can it sustain your family? And what does it mean for the future or everyday experiences of the young people? So today I'm going to talk about this research on camel and livestock livelihood prosperity. Can you hear me?
Sorry to hear it. Can you please go ahead and tell us a little bit more about that work and how it has helped to improve the prosperity of pastoralist youths in northern Kenya?
Thank you so much. So the idea is, as some of you know, especially the latest statistic for camel is about 42 million camels in Africa, and 84% of that, 44% of all this population, 84% of this population is in Africa, and Kenya is one of the countries with high camel production area. And here, camels are mostly produced in northern Kenya. And one thing about the camel is they are drought resilient compared to other livestock, and they are also have longer lactation period. That means the longer milk producing period enhances household food income. So what does this mean for young pastoralists? In the context of the research that we did in northern Kenya, young pastoralists are the ones who connect the farmers from the hinterland to the market by transporting milk in a very difficult terrain, but also they are the one who provide input in terms of animal medicines. They transport back from the market to the community. But above this, how they've made livelihood out of this, our research found four trajectories. Number one, as we see that through camel production and milk production, there are many cooperatives, milk cooperatives, largely owned by women, and also that supplies milk. And for example, there's a latest estimate which shows that every month it produces about 70,000 USD amount of income for the women and young people in this region. So how has this transformed lives of the young people here? This one, we found it in 3 ways. Number one, it enhances continuation of livestock production, despite the narrative that livestock production is becoming difficult because of climate change, disease. People are making life out of that, and it is a very prosperous livelihood. So this continuation means these young people are holding onto pastoral production. They are making it reliable so that the milk is supplied in a reliable systems. And number two, they are doing what is called compromise, because here sometimes some of them drop from contributing to camel production, but support extensive services. How is this possible? For instance, they send remittances by being employed in different administrative jobs, but then that remittances is used to pay the herders who manage the camel, and also they use that money to buy feeds and forages for animal. That money is used to purchase water. So this compromise, they don't directly herd the animal or collect the milk, but they support the camel production in a very diverse way. And then another way is also through cooperation. And here cooperation, pastoralists form, especially the young men and women, they form saving clubs and also association that helps them invest the income they get from different sources, from the camel itself, but also from their income, such as through education or through diverse economies. They use this pooling of resources to maintain the system. And the photo voice research has shown that these pastoralist young men and women make livelihood out of a very difficult situation. And because there is less investment in camel research, and camels also experience a lot of diseases. This is all what is shown by the photo voice research. There is a big challenges in areas around camel diseases. There is a lot of unknown camel diseases, and because of this, they don't know how to treat the animal. But despite that, they try to make life possible, and they show that through the photos. I wish I could show you the outcome of these photos. It also depicts how innovations are brought in this camel production. The women, despite lack of facilities like hygiene and storage facilities, they use traditional system to boil the milk and also preserve it for it to reach the market. And this daily innovation, daily improvisation, and the flexibility of establishing good network and trust between community helps them to make a good contribution through camel production. And also another thing is, these young people, they connect the milk from the rural area to market through motorcycle transport. In Kenya, we call it piki. And this motorcycle transport, it goes through a very difficult road terrain, because many of these rural places are not connected to market. It is a very remote rangelands, and despite that, they make sure that the milk is delivered in town, and that milk is also transported to urban centers like Nairobi. And finally, they also do other value addition, such as camel meat production. So we have young entrepreneurs who have established camel centers, and all this is shown through the photo voice. So they employ women who are producing the meat, and they are like frying the meat and processing it and packaging it for export quality. So I'll stop here.
Thank you very much, Tahira, for outlining the Photo Voice project, and it sounds really innovative and young people creating opportunities to improve the production from the livestock systems there, from the camel livestock system. So, look, last but not least, I'm going to bring in Harry O'Crowley. Harry works for the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine in Ireland. So, Harry, you might just tell us what your role is in the department.
Thanks very much, Frank. Good afternoon, colleagues. How are you all getting on? Hope you're still surviving. So I think if I was to, first of all, I head up the International Development Unit in the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine in Dublin. We have responsibility for our national engagement with FAO and WFP. And I suppose really what that means is we develop the strategic objectives, our key messaging on our engagement with these multilateral organizations. And to that end, there are 4 key areas that we involve in. That's sustainable livestock development, it's food systems transformation, it's youth engagement, and it's gender equality and women's economic empowerment. That is all framed within our national strategy, which is Food Vision 2030, and that is a 10-year agri-food strategy that was developed using a food systems approach. It was a multi-stakeholder collaborative process, and that is, I suppose, that's the framework in which we operate. They're our writing instructions to make sure we get stuff done in our engagement with not just with our multilaterals, but at home and domestically.
So turning to maybe the topic of today,
okay.
Harry, can you tell us what the Irish government and other actors in Ireland are doing to support generation and renewal and to make Irish livestock systems more sustainable?
For sure. So if I was to do a poll of primary producers, farming organisations, various actors in the agriculture sector, I think the words that would resonate with everybody to some extent would be land, financial security, and the attractiveness of the industry for future generations. And with that regard, I mean, let me put it in some context from an Irish perspective. 4% of our farmers are under 35 years of age. 40% are over 65 years of age. And to be quite frank about it, without generational renewal, the future of our agri-food sector and our rural communities is under threat. That's a truism. There's no getting away from that. So as policymakers, it is incumbent upon us to take account of all the factors that feed into the challenges that we face. And recently, Ireland and the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine led the Commission on Generational Renewal. And out of that, there are 31 recommendations. I'm not going to go through them all. But I'll try and give you a kind of a high-level kind of synopsis of where the Commission came back on. Access to land. We need to expand partnerships. We need to expand leasing. We need to, develop shared farming. We need to have access to finance. We need to be scaling up unsecured loans. In terms of succession and pensions, we need to support older farmers to give them the financial security to hand over to the younger generation. Part of that is taxation reliefs, whether it's around stamp duty or whether it's around stock relief, or long-term leasing, reliefs that you can get. We have to consider those. And we have to be able to provide financing as well, significant financing. And in that regard, one of the things that my department oversees is provision of unsecured loans up to €500,000. I think then the final part of that, the key is gender balance and attractiveness and making farming a modern, inclusive career. And when I say a modern career, it's not just about the subsidies or the financial gain out of it. It's about creating a culture of opportunity, that people want to go into farming, that they look on it as a viable, honourable profession. I mean, at the end of the day, primary producers are the guardians of the land. If we don't support them, the land will fall into disrepair. It's as simple as that. But I suppose in terms of the supports that are already in place from our department, we have young farmer income support schemes. We can give investment grants on targeted agricultural machinery scheme, which is up to 60% of the value of the cost. We provide succession planning and grants advice to the young people as they come in. And on Frank's side, on Teagasc, they provide family farm succession clinics. They provide what is called the Green Cert, which is a standard. It's a qualification for farming. For young farmers who might not otherwise have gone into farming, or older farmers who are coming back into farming or want to skill up. So I suppose to conclude, and I know we're under time, generational renewal is not just about economics. It's about vibrant rural communities, it's about sustainable food systems, and it's about giving the next generation a reason to choose farming with real confidence. Thanks, Frank.
Thank you very much, Harry, and thanks. And thanks to all our contributors so far. And I'm going to open it up to the floor in a minute now for questions. But while you're warming up, and please put up your hand if you have a question, I'm going to ask our three young people on the panel. That's no disrespect now to Harry and Charlotte. I suppose the worry is that the sector isn't as innovative as it could be or should be because the average age of farmer is 60. So I'm going to ask Evangelista and Jenna and Tahira, is that your impression that young people, that we'll say to Evangelista, you figured out something that your parents hadn't figured out? So our young people, are we losing out, I suppose, on the innovative capacity of young people because there's not enough of them in the industry? And I just want, please, short answers from you because I want to go to the floor. So Evangelista, you first.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. So I feel that young farmers have got a lot of innovations that they are storing away because of the issue of intellectual property. They are afraid that their innovations will be stolen once they release them out. In short.
That's good, thank you.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty, accurate. And too, in Canada, with a lot of the innovations comes a lot of technology, and it is difficult to get producers to change. And Canada's a really big country. We're really spread out. So trying to get that communication to everybody can be a challenge too.
Harder because the average age of doing Canada is about 60 as well. If we had more young people like you that were, for instance, you talk about normalising sustainability values. Is it harder when there are as many young people as you might see in other industries to move on the industry in this sustainable transformation that we feel needs to go on?
Yeah, definitely. I think in the future, we're going to see some of those young people become the strategic decision makers on their farm, but a lot of them aren't in that position yet. So waiting for that kind of round to come around, yeah.
Tahira, your perspective on that question?
Sorry, I didn't hear you. Your mic was off when I was trying to listen. I didn't get the question.
Sorry, Tahira, my apologies. I was wondering aloud that is the livestock sector less innovative than it could be or should be if we want this sustainable transformation, because the average age around the world of farmer is about 60. I'm not sure what it is in Kenya, but so are we losing out by not having more young people in the industry? Is that your experience in Kenya?
Thank you. For Kenya, I think, and even generally for East Africa, we have more innovations, but then we don't have space to explore that, especially because of lack of access to finance, but also lack of institutional support to make the innovation, operation, because most of the time people are limited because of the lack of that policy and financial inclusion space. So there are quite a number of innovations that is not used.
Okay, thank you for that. So now, audience, over to you. Anybody with a question? Up here at the front, please, and you might just give your name, organisation, and then a brief question. Gentleman here at the very front, I know his name, but I'm going to give him the honour of saying it himself.
Hello, Frank Dunche. I'm representing the World Association for Animal Production. And so this is one of the barriers to adoption of technology. There's always been, I think, farmers' trust in the technical support, and we've heard about precision agriculture now for 10 to 15 years. I'd just be interested in the young person's view of what the opportunities are with precision agriculture. It's directed to all three, I think.
Who would like to, you're directing it so to the three practitioners, we'll call them. So, okay. Jenna, do you want to go first this time?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity with precision agriculture. In the beef industry, I see a lot of it perhaps being more so adopted on the crop and growing feed side of things. Personally, I see a lot of young producers that are very excited about precision ag, and I've seen a lot of implementation in Canada. On the beef side of things, I think it'd be a little bit more difficult, but I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
Evangelista?
Okay, that's a wonderful question. And from my experience with young farmers in my country, I've realized that precision farming is actually attracting more young farmers to come on board. So I believe we've got a better future. What we need now is the financial capacity to make sure that we have the proper equipment so that we can proceed with proper farming using precision farming. Thank you.
And Tahira?
Yes, thank you. I also echo what my colleagues have said. In Kenya, for example, there's quite a number of technologies around weather and climate information service for pastoralists, health information service for pastoralists, and all of this is led by young people, and also it is taking lead. And at the International Livestock Research Institute, we have crowdsourced market information, which is used by the young people. They use that platform called CASNet to communicate market information, not only market, but also, animal body condition. And it is something that is well adopted in many parts of the country, including also Ethiopia. So the youth and the young people are up to precision agriculture. Thank you.
Okay, so any other questions from the floor there at the back, please?
Thank you, Frank. Hello, everyone. My name is Joshua from Tanzania. I work with the Africa Scouts and African Pastoralist Initiative. Mine is not a question, but just to highlight some of the important things that I think it is important to, as a takeaways. First, I agree with, I really appreciate the perspective of young people that have been presented by the panelists here, and also our youngest panelist, Harry, for making some of the issues. I think, as Tamira said, we have a lot of innovation at the ground. Young people are doing a lot. But there are some of the issues, and I really appreciate if we should have at least one representative from the government. One of the issues we have is lack of political will to support these young people. We have a lot of innovation of, my friend from Zambia mentioned, Zimbabwe, I think, yeah. One of the issues that we are afraid is, of course, we can showcase this, but big tycoons can steal our ideas and they can go for it and nothing happens. We need to see that young people are supported from the policy, not only designing, but also being part of the design of those policies, but also private sector coming in. We have issues of lack of market, infrastructure in our areas at the pastor. I'm a pastoralist. But if you tell me today, I shared yesterday somewhere, if sometime for me to have a processing factory, for example, for meat or milk, I will have to take more than 200 kilometers to reach that. The roads is a problem as well. If you go down also to the access to finance is a big issue. We are not trusted. Lack of land tenure, security, and access is the problem. And nobody will trust you with nothing. So I think these are the important things that we need to look if we want young people to take the lead. I'm wondering, as you have said, I think this is globally where the future of the world's food security, if it is the older generation that we need. So I think it is the time for us as the private sector, including young people, of course, public sector, and all other stakeholders to come together to see how can we support young people, not just on the discussion, but also putting into action, putting them on the lead. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments. So look, unfortunately, I think I would love to continue the conversation, but we are out of time. And Charlotte or Harry, you did not get anything after your intervention. Is there any wrap-up comments you would like to make, either of you? Very briefly now, please.
Yes, a very brief comment, just to say that, of course, innovation is something attractive for young people, for young farmers, innovation, precision livestock farming, but that there are also some low-tech systems that can be attractive to some of the young farmers, and that there is a wide diversity of the farming systems that are meaningful for the young people. So we don't have to provide a unique vision of which are the expectations of young farmers.
Thank you. Harry?
Very quickly, Frank, and to amplify the comments from our colleague from Tanzania, I think without political support, without government support, underwriting loans, providing the knowledge, providing all of these issues around taxation and access to land, the challenges that young people and women experience and the barriers that they have to getting into agriculture, I regret to say will continue. So I think it's really up to the politicians and the policymakers at governmental level to make the significant start in this road. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So look, we are coming to the conclusion. I'd like to thank all our speakers and panelists for their presentations and for the contributions from the floor. And look, I think there is an incredibly important role that young people are playing. We heard some great examples here and indeed in other parts of the conference about what young people have done. I would of course say that older people can be very innovative too. It's a state of mind rather than an age. The correlation is not 100% perfect. But young people certainly bring energy and fresh thinking to the table. So look, by way of wrap up, I would just like to thank the FAO for agreeing to this side event. I think it was very interesting. I hope you agree with me. Particularly, I'd like to thank Ana Ruda Garcia and Paulo Media for their help in the organisation of this. They're both from the FAO. I would also like to thank Jessica Radu from the Canadian Cattle Association. I don't know, did you get to join us? You're there, Jessica. Thank you for your help. And Valeria Di Marzo and Julia De Crusto from the World Farmer Organization for your help in organising the session. And of course, my own colleagues in the Animal Task Force, especially Ana Sofia Santos and Susanna de Magdalene, who are down here in the front. So with that, look, we'll draw this to a close. Thanks to those online as well for staying with us, and thank you, the audience, for attending and making this a worthwhile session.